Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we are going on a truly thrilling journey of discovery. We're going to unpack an absolutely incredible story today about two people, Carla and her friend Larry. So they sit down to go through this inherited, totally unassuming plastic storage tub, right? And what do they find? A literal time capsule of American history hidden inside. If you love history, or collecting, or just that pure thrill of unearthing a forgotten treasure, you are definitely in the right place. Let's get started.
It's a question we've probably all asked ourselves at some point, maybe while cleaning out a dusty attic or organizing a closet. But for Carla, this wasn't just a hypothetical scenario. She inherited a plastic container from her uncle Clarence. Now, Clarence never married, he didn't have a family of his own, so this deeply personal box fell to Carla. And she had absolutely no idea what was waiting inside. The emotional and honestly the financial stakes of this single evening of discovery are exactly what make this story so incredibly captivating for us to explore.
Section 1. Uncovering the Stamp Album.
So resting right at the very top of the tub, Carla and Larry made their first big discovery. It was this pristine red and white stamp album. But this wasn't just any album. This was the Adventurer stamp album, made by the H.E. Harris Company way back in the 1940s. Larry, who actually has a really fantastic grasp of history, pointed out that these albums were absolute cultural icons of their era. They were heavily illustrated and explicitly marketed to boys as this exciting window to world travel. They were designed to just completely fire up the imagination of young kids across the country, encouraging them toward really focused, productive hobbies. It's such a fascinating glimpse into the whole national mindset of that generation.
But what makes this specific artifact truly special isn't just its mass-produced history, it's the deeply personal touch. Right there on the inside cover, written in Clarence's very own handwriting, was his name and address, 422 West Hammond Street, Chicago, Illinois. Wow. Seeing that handwriting immediately grounded this mass-marketed book to a specific, real young man growing up in Chicago. It's a direct, tangible link to the past. And flipping through it, they quickly realized they were looking at the portrait of a super dedicated collector. Almost every single U.S. stamp was right in its proper place, with supplemental pages extending the timeline all the way up to 1963.
Moving on to Section 2. Portrait of a Collector.
Okay, so after taking a quick, well-deserved break to make some chili dogs and grab a couple of cold beers, the duo returned to the tub feeling totally energized. And right beneath that stamp album, they found two books. It was Uncle Clarence's 1952 and 1953 yearbooks from Roosevelt High School in North Chicago. Thumbing through the pages, they finally found young Clarence's portraits. He was this sharp, smart-looking, and honestly remarkably mature high schooler. He looked like exactly the kind of kid you'd expect to have such an incredible eye for detail.
Section 3. Rare Cents and Nickels.
Down at the very bottom of the tub lay the real treasure. We're talking a massive stack of those classic blue WEIGHTMAN cardboard coin folders. This is where the evening completely transitioned from a nostalgic trip down memory lane into a very serious financial appraisal. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer chronological dedication Clarence had to United States coinage. I mean, he didn't just collect whatever random change was in his pocket. He built a historical timeline. He had a folder for the Flying Eagle cents, which, by the way, were the very first small cents the U.S. Mint ever produced, minted only from 1856 to 1858. Then he had an Indian head cent folder covering the next 50 years, followed by a nearly unbroken wall of copper in the Lincoln head folder up to 1958. That even included the famous 1943 steel penny from World War II.
So the crucial point is understanding what makes a collection like this truly valuable. In the coin collecting world, value really often comes down to what we call key dates. Basically, a key date is a rare or historically significant coin within a series, usually just because the mint didn't produce very many of them that specific year. As Larry pointed out in the Indian head folder, young Clarence had somehow, amazingly, managed to get his hands on an 1877 penny. Now, even though it was worn, that specific date is the famous key date of the whole set. It's a real prize that almost nobody ever found in everyday circulation.
Moving right along to the nickels, these folders provided an absolute masterclass in American history. Just look at this breakdown. Clarence had Liberty Head V-nickels, which, fun fact for you, scammers actually used to gold plate back in 1883 to pass them off as $5 gold pieces. Wild, right? He also had those thick, primitive shield nickels from right after the Civil War. He had the iconic Buffalo nickels, where the dates famously rubbed off so easily in pocket change, yet somehow Clarence's were totally pristine. And finally, a completely full folder of Jefferson nickels.
Now, right within that Jefferson folder was a brilliant little piece of wartime history. Larry showed Carla how to spot the unique 1942 to 1945 WWI nickels. See, during the war, the government desperately needed nickel for the war effort, so they removed it from the coins entirely. They replaced it with an alloy containing 35% silver. You can actually spot them by this unusually large mint mark, like a really big P, stamped prominently right over the dome of Monticello on the back of the coin.
Which brings us to Section 4, the silver coin hoard.
Okay, the stakes escalated pretty dramatically as they moved into a massive 90% silver hoard. This featured delicate seated Liberty dimes from the 1800s, heavily used Barber dimes, stunning Mercury dimes with super crisp details, and a completely full Roosevelt dime folder stretching all the way up to 1964. But honestly, the Washington quarters were what really took their breath away. Carla pulled out a single, thick blue Whitman folder for Washington quarters spanning 1932 to 1964. Guys, every single slot in the entire folder was filled. And these weren't worn-down, beat-up coins, no way. They had sharp details, boasting uncirculated condition on early 1930s dates, and it even included the highly sought-after key dates of 1932-D and 1932-S. Let me tell you, for a young collector to assemble a complete, high-grade set of 90% silver quarters, that is just a staggering achievement.
And the chronological progression of heavy silver half dollars followed right after. First came the Barber half dollars, which, think about it, were substantial, serious money for a kid back in the day. Then the Walking Liberty half dollars, widely considered by a lot of collectors to be the most beautiful coin the U.S. ever made. And finally, the Franklin half dollars. But actually, it was the final folder in this half dollar series that provided a massive, historical surprise for the two of them.
Because when they opened the Kennedy half-dollar folder, they fully expected a standard chronological set. Instead, aside from just one 1963 coin, every single slot was packed with identical, gleaming, brilliant uncirculated 1964 Kennedy half-dollars. Following President Kennedy's tragic assassination in late 1963, the Mint struck these as a memorial. Because they were 90% silver and held immense emotional weight for the country, people hoarded them by the millions. Clarence had clearly gone straight to the bank and bought as many fresh rolls as he could physically carry, turning this one folder into a literal memorial hoard.
Section 5, a surprising final appraisal.
Well, it was getting pretty late, but underneath all those cardboard folders, Carla uncovered two final, non-folder items. First, she pulled out this crisp paper envelope. Inside were 15 incredibly fresh, uncirculated $1 silver certificates, easily identified by their bright blue seals. Paper money in this kind of pristine condition commands a real premium today. Next to that was a heavy, original paper-wrapped roll of silver dollars. The wrapper was super tight, exposing just the brilliant reeded edges of brand-new silver coins. Carla didn't even want to open it. She said it felt far too much like a sacred time capsule.
Sitting back, the reality of what they were actually looking at began to sink in. As Larry astutely observed, a young man couldn't have put this together completely on his own. I mean, covering everything from 1856 Flying Eagles to complete sets of silver quarters and original bankrolls, that takes real money and real connections. Clarence almost certainly had a mentor, maybe an older family friend or a relative who was already an established collector, someone who guided him and helped seed this incredible, expensive collection.
And this brilliantly illustrates the ultimate payoff of Uncle Clarence's lifelong dedication. Pulling out his phone and checking a few of those key dates and the current silver values, Larry gave Carla a conservative estimate. Even accounting for normal circulation wear on some of the older pieces, he estimated the contents of that single, unassuming plastic tub to be easily worth $4,000 to $5,000. Incredible. It's just an astounding conclusion to what started as a quiet evening at home. Uncle Clarence's patience, his organization, and his obvious passion turned everyday pocket change into a $5,000 time capsule. It really makes you stop and think about the things passed down in your own life, doesn't it? So, what unassuming boxes or forgotten items might be sitting in your closet right now, just waiting to tell their story? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today, and I really hope it inspires you to take a closer look at your own family's hidden history.